I probably should have started recording this earlier than what I did, but as all the videos that I make, they're pretty impromptu, and I didn't plan this, and I just suddenly thought, oh, I should probably start recording this. I've got a job on where it's going to require long heats in multiple bars that are going to be 25mm square, and I want to make a solid fuel forge, which is going to allow me to get long heats in the bars. So for quite a while I've had this sort of cylinder that's been cut lengthways and just been knocking around outside, and I think when I originally got it I intended to use it as a water like a quench trough, so I could quench a long distance at a time. I never used it as that. It's just been knocking around outside, and I got this piece of heavy walled pipe from the local steel stockholders, fabricators, who just they sell odds and ends. I'm not sure what the thickness of that is. About 8mm maybe. It's about 40-ish mil OD and 25mm in the middle. So what I did is I just got a hole saw that was a nearish size and drilled out both ends. And the idea is I'm going to drill holes at intervals in this pipe so that when air gets blasted in the end, the air comes out at various intervals, and the end of the pipe will get sealed off. And then what that will hopefully do is make the air blast dispersed along the length of the pipe, meaning that the coals that get packed in there will heat up in a long line. So what I'm going to do is I'll just sort of protect the bed of this a little bit by putting some dirt and sand or whatever in, sort of probably to, I don't know, maybe the top level of the pipe or halfway up the top level of the pipe. The depth from the top of this heavy bit of walled pipe to the top edge here is going to be about 5-6 inches. I don't know how well the depth of this thing is coming out. Anyway, yeah, so I'll just try and remember to record bits. I think it'd be quite a fun little thing. I know there's probably like a really clever way to do it, you calculating how many burners and all the rest that I need if I did it with some fancy kind of gas forge, but I don't really like gas forges, and I kind of like the simplicity of like just making a fire out of scrap and just making what you need in a simple way. And also an open topped forge like this is more versatile, as you can feed bars in at angles, and whereas with gas forges you're pretty limited on space. Now, at the risk of stating the obvious with this, I don't know the maths of like what would be the ideal hole size to drill for the size of tube, even if this diameter of tube is the right size, etc. The spacings of the holes, etc. So I'm just doing this all on an educated guess. So I've spaced these holes at 3.5 inch centres, and they are about 1/2 inch holes, roundabout, smidge more than that actually. They're 12mm, and I've capped off the end with just a bit of bar that's roughly of a similar size. Now, it goes without saying that when I come to rig up an air supply, a proper air supply, I'll be using an electric fan. But for the sake of just quickly testing out the air, how the air disperses, comes through, this is a hand cranked fan that I take to demonstrations when I'm doing public demonstrations at craft fairs and that. So that's just a bit of in fact, actually, I'll slow that down a sec. So this is a hand cranked fan from a sort of old military style portable forge, and it would have bolted onto the back of a fire and it would have blasted air in. So what I've done is like rigged up a stand, and then this the end of that bit of metal tube sort of ends about there, and this is called a e-besparcher, or flexible hot air ducting, and I've just gaffer taped it on to there for the sec. So yeah, coming back to this, so I'll just give that a wind. I'll let that run. Put my hand over here. I can feel the air coming out really nicely. So what I'll do is I'll rig up like a bit of an air gate onto here, and then hook this up to electric fan. So on my my like proper coal forge, I have a fan at the back in that box, which is a bouncy castle blower, and the air gate system on the back is like a sort of slider which, you know, chokes the air on and off. So I'll do something similar over here. But yeah, so far so good. Thought I'd just better pause for a second and do a little update before I sort of charge ahead and do too much. So what I've been doing is fabricating a little stand using stuff that I had in stock, you know, some angle iron and some discs for the feet, just to sort of prevent scratching the floor too much when I drag it around, or when I use it outside and getting too bogged down in the mud. Because likely as much as I'm not going to fabricate a hood for this and all sorts, I'll likely as much do this outside. So yeah, so far so good, I think. I mean, next would be to pack out the bottom area underneath with some sand and dirt and bring it up to the level so the fire is off the base. I mean, obviously the fire will only go upwards, but you know, there's no point in wasting coals underneath there. Yeah, I've sort of got, you know, reasonably high hopes for this. In the earlier part of this, I mentioned about bouncy castle blower. This is a spare one that I had, which I forgot that I'd bought. It's similar to the one that's on my forge. It might be slightly less powerful, but it's 480 watts. And there's some random like screws, brass screws on it, because when I bought it because back in the days when I used to do lessons, I thought if the one on my forge gives up in the middle of a lesson, then I'm stuffed. So I bought a spare, but it had this like really annoying rattle because the blade inside would hit the casing. So the random looking screw is because I've sort of fiddled around with the casing a bit. Anyhow, they're super powerful, and to illustrate, what I'll do, where's the switch? It's been in a box and up on the top of the workshop for you, yonks. So, steel ruler, if I just move it in front of it, again, move it away, move it in front. So what I'll do is I've got some more of this flexible hot air ducting. And obviously once upon a time I bought this size diameter of it because, well, presumably that gauze bit there is the same on my other bouncy castle blower, and so that is perfectly sized for that. So I'll just gaffer tape around there, and then that means I don't have to remove the one off my forge, and I can just put this by the doors for the workshop, put that outside so I don't have to have a smoke hood, etc. And yeah, so the other thing I've still got yet to do is the like air regulator on that, because that's going to provide a lot of air. But yeah, I'm quite hopeful. So I thought it was worth just hooking this up without any air gate for the minute, just to see how it fares. Feels like there's a good amount of air coming through, and that's obviously with this thing on full, because there's no gate to choke it off. So I'll give it a little fire, try and see how it handles. So I would say this is working really well, and I definitely need an air regulator because that's going to melt the pipe. I've purposely bought a thick wall pipe to resist the heat, but without an air regulator, this is going to get too hot and the pipe's going to melt, but that's working really nicely. After yesterday's experimentation, I've thought of some bits I need to sort out. So the air in this effectively comes from below. I mean, even though the fan is at the side, the air's below. All these holes are below and blowing up. So this is Welsh steam coal, which I'm burning. And as it gets quite small, and as you go down, and you can see down here how it's plugging up the holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this sort of cap. I'm going to weld a bit more pipe onto this end, and then I'm going to make a sort of a flap or something, which can mean that the air can be shut off, or I can open it up, and then that will allow me to blast the air through to clear out all these little small bits which are falling down and clogging up the air supply. And then on the other end, I'm still going to do this air gate thing. This is the air gate that I'm fabricating. So basically it's effectively 3 pieces of 50mm wide bar, each with a 25mm hole drilled through them. So when the 3 bars line up, the airflow is unhindered. As it's still a bit warm, this, so when I pull it back, you can see how it sort of progressively chokes it off, and then so there's, in theory, I can sort of completely choke it. Yes, too hot to touch that still. So yeah, what I've got to do is cut into the pipe that I've already got, and then basically weld this onto, well, you'll see, it's pretty obvious. And then I think I'll be nigh on ready to go. Here's basically my finished setup. The things that I've done since the last little installation was I've made like a bung for the end. I mentioned that the internal diameter of this tube was 25mm, so I got a bit of 25mm bar, ground a short taper on the end, and welded a bit of a disc on the end so that I can knock it in or knock it out just to jam off the air. I thought that was better than doing anything that increased the outside diameter of this, because otherwise it would make it difficult to pass the thing through, pass the tube through. So obviously that just pushes in and out. Then my air gate, which I think I've focused on a little bit, which just slides like this to either have the air fully open or choked off. Then I made like a little sort of reducing reducing coupling, because what I thought would, if the hose to the fan is taped onto there, then that means that everything is always one, whereas if it's like just pushing onto this, then I can Jubilee clip round that, which means I can easily separate and undo. So switch this on. So that's air's fully open at the minute. You can feel the air coming through well. I think actually the air feels stronger at the back, at the end here, rather than yeah, it definitely feels like stronger up here. But I guess what I'll have, the way to overcome that will be by raking the hotter coals back this way. So if I just use my air gate, just can you hear the difference? So that's fully open, and then I'll choke it off. And I think about there it's about fully off. Back on. So yeah, all this problem with the sort of finer bits of coal getting down in there. Obviously at the minute it's just going to blow it straight back out. But like previously, lots of bits like that would be a problem. But I think I've probably done this up a bit too. Hang on, let me get a hammer. So there's the bit that's choking it off. If I off it goes. It's windy as hell out here. So I've notched out a bit here and notched out a similar bit at the end because I just felt like I couldn't get the bar quite low enough down in. So it's 25mm square. It's actually got it so hot at one point that it's burnt the bar a bit. So there's a good heat out of that. A lot of radiant heat coming off that.